September 26th, 2024, at high school, and then drive to the assisted living facility where my dad lives on a memory care unit. Do they really care for his memory? I turn at the wrong place and find myself yelling at Siri to get directions to the Salisbury facility and not the Raleigh one that it wanted to send me to. I make a U turn and find my way back. I am new to this town. It's been almost a year since I've lived here, yet so much of my time has been spent driving back to Charlotte to work. We moved my dad here at the end of June. It's now September 26th. He has moved from walking all over the place, giving seminars in the lunchroom meeting, and throwing things in his room, to sitting quietly with his eyes closed while I feed him breakfast. Parkinson's disease is a gradual decline. 18 years since he was diagnosed. 8 years since his first back surgery that kicked off the hallucinations and behavior issues. This is common with Parkinson's post-surgery anesthesia and pain meds. They all complicate the disease. They can induce or worsen dementia. Here we are 5 years past COVID when the world was shut down, all in the name of protecting the health of our seniors. How ironic. 5 years he was cut off from his regular activities, his social events. Engaging with other people and playing cards is a great cognitive exercise. Muscles weaken when they are not used. The brain deteriorates when it is not stimulated. 5 trips to the emergency department since June. One after he moved in, and one hospital visit the day he was supposed to move in. I almost did it, he told me more than once, referring to having the TIA, the stroke-like symptoms. He thought he was getting to leave, to release his failing body. A month ago, I was worried about him getting up unassisted and falling. Today, I help him to his recliner chair to sleep more comfortably. I just want to collapse, he told me. So many falls, but usually on third shift in the early morning hours when he wakes up to get out of bed, to go to the bathroom. Don't we all? And why do we expect people to stop this normal behavior of getting up from bed to go to the bathroom? Why do we treat our elderly this way? Is this what we want for the end of our lives? We can do better. I remember the first time I learned about assisted living facilities, probably 30 years ago. Such an improvement from nursing homes, and now they look more like nursing homes with less skilled staff. We found the most highly rated place with the best patient to staff ratio, yet it's not good enough. Not good enough for my dad in the end of his life. If I had extra bedroom in the first floor, I would bring him home. I would bring him to my house with round-the-clock caregivers. And yet, this would take a toll on my family, and maybe a bigger toll on me. Yet, this is my dad, and this is the end of his life. We have debated hospice for nearly 2 months, and now is the time. We let go of 4 amazing skilled home health care staff in order to say yes to hospice. Rules, government-guided rules for reimbursement. No therapy services are paid for with hospice care. Is this in the best interests of our seniors? I know it's not in the best interest for my dad, yet we make decisions so Medicare pays the bills. Why does money drive the quality of care? As aggravated as I am by the level of care at this highly rated place, I see the level of care and the conditions of this place compared to other places. Yet, no matter the place, the people make all the difference. And every place has amazing, wonderful, caring people, and every place has angry, short-tempered, aloof, or uninvested people. Sitting in my hammock on my porch today, as light rain and the wind blows, the wind chimes. Sad, soft songs play on my phone. I contemplate how I can make a difference. How can I make a difference for my dad? How can I make a difference with the system? I can visit my dad for breakfasts on days I don't go to work. I can bring him a homemade smoothie and feed him eggs. I can sit with him and reassure him that we will all be okay and help him get comfortable in his recliner chair before I head on my way to jump into the rest of my day and figure a way to make a difference for others, for my and for my future.
Well, hello, this is Don,
And this is Gina with Focused Healthy Family.
and this is podcast number 2000. 2000. We're going to go that big. No, what? 2008. And today,
208.
what did I say? My my brain's not connecting. To 208 is what I. And today we're facing feelings again, and this time we're talking about personal caregivers. Um, but before we get started, I got a couple of jokes for you. Let me bring them up here and tell you what they are. First one is, I used to be a caregiver, but now I'm having a hard time finding a new job. All my references are dead. Let me get the other ones. Where are they at? Here they are. Here's one way of making sure that sales promotions won't go bankrupt your business. A sign on a local barbershop read, "We offer senior citizens discount. Must be at least 80 years old and accompanied by a parent." And the last one is, how can you tell you're getting old? You go to an antiques auction and three people bid on you.
It's fun to lighten the mood and laugh a little. My dad was always enjoyed a good joke himself.
Well, and today we're in doing something a little different. We're working on if I can hold this
Put
up.
a
There
little
we
bit
go.
there.
It's kind of want to get, yeah,
It's struggling with your
I
face.
know with
Put
my,
it
it's
directly in
hard.
front of your face so it's not trying to zoom
That's
in.
true.
Oh,
That's
that
not
doesn't
doing any
work at
good.
all.
I can,
Wait, you have it. Wait, slow, slow, slow. Bring it over to the towards your face. No. Wait.
oh,
Oh, there. Oh.
I don't know if you, okay, I'll just read it. You want to try to hold it up? There you go.
Jan Luther's Grief is Morning Sickness,
If you
written
open up,
by our wonderful friend
you want
Jan
to open up
Luther.
where the thing is, it's just a pretty short.
Grief is an inconsiderate guest. It shows up uninvited at the most inopportune times and always overstays its welcome. Is that the tip?
Yeah, that was it. I was going to save that one for another day.
So, not exactly a tip today, but
Yeah, I guess
sharing information from our beloved friend and her amazing book. We can obviously post that in the links.
so it shows up. Um,
And so we're talking about facing feelings. So I wrote that blog post just over a year ago. It was, goodness, the 26th of September. He passed away October 8th. So that was what, 2 weeks before he
beforehand, yeah.
passed, right when we initiated hospice care and he was really declining. And he was ready to say goodbye to this life and his body that was failing him. And so looking at the toll caregiving takes on us personally, those caring for our loved ones, those, the family members, the spouse, adult children, other relatives, whoever is involved, whether very directly involved in the care or assisting in some way, and the feelings that we go through during that experience.
Do you want to read what's, I didn't, you have the book, otherwise I can get the different lists that I came up with. It shows the different,
Yes, we've been talking about facing feelings. We've been talking last podcast, we discussed the feelings of the aging loved one. We're looking at personal caregivers. The other areas we're going to explore are professional caregivers, the adult children of aging parents, children and grandchildren, as far as younger family members. So, kind of covering this topic with all these different areas.
well, and
And
we've talked about before, when you have, whether it's, we've had different kinds of kind of diseases that people have done, that certain people deal with. And when one person deals with it, the whole family does. Well, this is the same kind of principle in that, when you have an aging loved one, really everybody in the family can be involved in it and work on helping to support it.
Sure, and we wanted to really dive into the feeling aspect of this, and what are our, like for example, us. I assisted caring for my dad. We dealt with moving him and then moving my mom, and me visiting him, Don, you going there, as
Mm.
well as juggling our work. And we have a teenager at home. We also have another older daughter who lives at home, and their feelings and their experiences with it, and um, it really, like, for me, it tugged on my heartstrings. I seeing my dad suffer, wanting him to be as comfortable as possible, um, and knowing that the end was coming, and my own personal feelings about not being able to go visit my dad and not having him there. So it's a lot to face. Um, you know, this article you found on talks about emotional challenges including chronic stress and overwhelm, right? The chronic stress of caring for someone, how it builds on it, and are you taking care of yourself? And then when you're not getting the sleep, the nutrition that you need, your own exercise and well-being, just adds to that. The guilt you might feel for what you're not doing. I want to talk about anticipatory grief. um, Anger and resentment you might have, loneliness and isolation, kind of a loss of self as far as your identity shifts. Think about when you have a newborn baby and everything you're doing is related to the child, or if you have a child with special needs. And then just burnout and exhaustion.
Well, and you've had a recent experience that my dad passed when I was 17, and I think about the regrets that I have. I think, and that's probably part of what the guilt part that they're talking about. But I had a lot of different regrets because I didn't have the time to talk with them. I don't know. You had some time to be able to talk with your dad. Do you feel some regrets, or do you feel anything?
um like, saying that, it doesn't pop into my head particularly about regrets. I mean, I wish I had been able to bring him to see our new house. He was
Yeah.
very involved when we purchased our last house and helping us with it, and just would have enjoyed him seeing, this is where I am now. But
We kind of came that close to it, but we did a video, didn't we?
I'm sure we did. It's probably a little bit harder for him to take
Yeah,
that
yeah.
information in via video. But for me, I was so happy that we moved him up here, and I had what, 3, 4 months with him where I could visit him almost every day. I mean, he was just a couple miles away, and getting to spend that extra time with him. We had gatherings with my sister, my brother, other family members, my kids, all of us going there. I remember my parents celebrated their 59th wedding anniversary, August of 2024. And our youngest daughter and me, we got picked up pizza and we brought it over to the assisted living. And they let us use a little conference room that had, like, I don't know, there was papers and stuff on the table, and we cleared out a little corner. Were you with us, Don? I'm not sure. You might
Yeah, I
have.
think so. I think we did.
And we enjoyed pizza to celebrate my parents' anniversary. My dad, we had him in the conference room with us, and it was a simple little gathering, but honoring their anniversary. And so we had those different kind of moments to spend. Yet, it was hard to see my dad being in a facility. I know
Mm.
we realized it was so much on my mom caring for him, and it was not in his best safety interest. And he really never tried to exit. As much as he
No,
tried to escape and run away at other places, I knew he didn't like the stress he was putting on my mom. And so
Yeah, he
He was
felt,
kind of resolved.
yeah, I was gonna say, I think by the time he got there, he was, like I say, he was starting to get to that place of kind of resolving that this was kind of the last part of his life, or the ending of his life. So, um, yeah,
I'm curious what feelings came up for you, Don. I know you got to spend quite a bit of time with my dad, just having lost your dad at such a very young age. And, did it spark feelings when you were with him as far as thinking about, if you had gotten to have a longer time with your father and you never really got to see him age? He was 56 when he passed.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, with your dad, I mean, I felt the, more and more as we went through it, it felt like he was kind of my dad, and I don't know. I, I I tried to do as much as I can to cheer him, to make him laugh,
Hmm.
because even when he wasn't expressing much, he'd get a little smirk on his face. You could tell that he had a little bit of laugh, still in him. So
He appreciated your humor for
yeah,
sure. I'm just curious, though, personally, your own feelings and dealing with it and being there with him. And I know, it's different for different family members. You know, I know my brother and sister had different experiences than me. For me, I've worked in geriatric care for so long that I felt comfortable at the facility just because that was kind of like my usual place. And yet at the same time, it was very different having my father there.
yeah.
I'd get him up walking and be like, okay, Dad, I'm your therapist now. And other times we'd just be sitting and enjoying some music together. Um,
I don't know. It's hard to, you asked about feelings, and that's always a tough place sometimes for me to go to. I felt I don't know. I was trying to do my best to make him comfortable, make him happy where he's at, and that kind of satisfied me. I had one of the nurses came in at one time, and I'm trying to remember. I think I'd gotten him from the chair to his thing, and I was putting his legs up on, and she looked at me and she said, "Wow, you are very caring for your." And I said, "Well, he can't do this himself, and I want him to feel comfortable, and
we're not typically used to seeing that in a son in law.
yeah,
And, I know, I think at the time we talked about how when they see a man jumping in as caregiving, how, wow, we compliment and uh, praise that. And yet women do it all the time.
yeah, yeah,
But I mean, I know they pointed out how involved the whole family was
yeah.
and how um, there were a lot of sad feelings there. There were frustration at times when he was a little agitated, and
Oh yeah, what
sometimes I went and I brought things to do, and we were too busy going, I don't know, just moving about, keeping an eye on him. And then there were times when, well, more near the end, when it was just sitting there with him. But
yeah, there were frustrating times, when you got that. I'd get the call at 2 o'clock in the afternoon that something's happened, or that this has happened. Can and I'd go run there, and luckily it was very close. It was so it wasn't too frustrating.
yeah, he did have some moments of agitation and
Just yeah, nothing
distress.
wasn't he wasn't terrible with it, but yeah, I don't know. It felt kind of loving to be there and support as best I could. Um, he's he's done so much for us with our as a family through our whole married life, and always been there for us. Um, so I wanted to be able to give that back to him somehow.
I know for me, the toll was more on just managing my time and feeling like my kid who needed me, and having to be there for my dad and what took precedent. So that was emotionally difficult for me. Just uh, that feeling of needing to be everywhere at once, feeling like I need to clone myself. So that could be very overwhelming. Especially at that time, I was still driving to Charlotte to work.
Yeah.
And that, from where we live now, that's 40 miles. I mean, depending on traffic, anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour plus. Um, so that added that extra element of dealing with that, um, to some, fatigue and just worry over or the kids, getting what they needed.
It makes me I didn't really think about this now, and actually just kind of coming to my mind now, but we're only a year away from your dad's death, and you're handling unbelievable the way you're handling it. And I remember with my dad, it took me a long time to really get past it without stopping and crying every every time I don't know. I used to go sit on his grave and just sit there and talk to him and stuff, and so I just have to say you handle it very well. I hope I can be there for you somehow. Now that I think about it, that I need to be here a little more for.
Well, and you were. I remember the night he passed. I the family all had different cars and headed out from. He was at the facility, and I sat in my car. I just couldn't leave the building until the I don't know, was it an ambulance, whoever that came to pick him up, the funeral home, until they left with him and his body. Um, and just that overwhelm after that, and coming back to the house, and I had you step outside with me, and I just broke down then and just had that moment of just loss. And you were there. You got it. And obviously, losing your dad at 17 in a way that he had gone in for surgery, and you knew he had issues with his heart, but nowhere did you expect that. I mean,
Yeah,
to
no.
happen. And he was 56 at the time, as you were a teenager. And
Well, it was a whole day of it. It started at 2:30 in the morning, and when we got there, he was fine. He came out of it. Then he slipped out of it. Then he kind of came back, and in fact, we went in and talked to him at that point. And so it was kind of interesting, a whole day of that. You're
you had a
worn
whole
out.
day of it. I had years.
Yeah, yeah,
And then
yeah,
I had months when he was up here. I mean, he had a progressive illness. I knew when he was diagnosed with it. I'd worked with people with Parkinson's. Really seen end stage Parkinson's and what it can look like. And I remember thinking that would be the worst thing. And just physically, it can affect you. And then mentally as well. And just my dad's hobbies were all pretty physical involved. And just that long, slow decline, and just, anticipating what that future would look like, and that initial grief that I felt. And then, things were fine for a while. And then when things started to get worse, that sense of like, how long is he going to have to suffer like this? That was probably almost a tougher time period,
hmm
when we'd have to run from, I'd have to run to the hospital or the rehab center where he had, broken a window or whatever had happened. That was a tougher time emotionally for me. Once we moved him up here, it was sort of, we didn't know how long he'd survive, but coming to terms with it. So just, and obviously I was just shy of 55 when he passed. So a very different place in my life. Um, and, then looking at like my mom, she was the spouse, she was the main caregiver, and taking care of him at home and taking him to the daycare center, and all the things that she did to care for him for so long. And, the toll it took on her, and then feeling like, we needed to look out for her. And so there's kind of a multi-level of caregiving, and just the effect on different people, on us helping her and helping him, and coming to terms with feelings, being able to. I know with my dad, he was so paranoid if we talked with him, even if we were in a different room than him. Like I remember one time we were meeting with the people who assisted with helping to move, and we met at a little restaurant, outside the house, and there was a caregiver with my dad, just because he was paranoid. We were talking about him and he didn't, and so just being able to share those feelings, and we had to do that outside of his presence even, and just knowing that, I don't know, just the toll it's taking on my mom, thinking about caregiver burnout. Just I found an article. This is from Cleveland Clinic. Caregiver burnout is a state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion that happens when you're taking care of someone else. Stress caregivers may experience fatigue, anxiety, and depression. You can reduce your risk of burnout by participating in respite care, joining a support group, or talking with a mental health professional. And it just talks about, who's a caregiver. Caregivers, any person who provides physical or psychological care to someone else. Caregivers help others who aren't able to fully help themselves in some way due to declining health, illness, injury, or underlying medical condition. And they talk about someone with cancer, chronic illness, mental health conditions, Alzheimer's, dementia, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, a stroke, traumatic brain injuries, just to name a few. And if you're involved in helping someone with their daily routine, from getting dressed, taking a shower, preparing meals, assisting with homework, medication management, managing finances, transportation, monitoring someone's health, even if your loved one lives on their own, just having to be in touch with them and paying attention to what's happening, and advocating and communicating their needs. Sometimes it's just a matter of being there at the doctor's appointments with them. So, thinking about that, people don't always consider themselves a caregiver if they're just a family member. And, well, my
Hmm.
mom doesn't live with me. She's at this independent living facility or whatever, and I just support her and I go over once a week and fill up her pill case or whatever. Um, you're still providing assistance in some way. Whether you're managing things financially or you're meeting her at doctor's appointments or taking her to them. Um, it's still, it's something you're responsible for. It's something that you take on as a responsibility, and it's family. So it's it's not like choosing a job. Excuse me.
Well, you talk a lot about the anticipatory grief, I think it
Yeah,
is.
that was
Yeah.
a whole nother article I had pulled out. Um, but yeah, just and I mentioned that briefly. Excuse me. When I knew, my dad was diagnosed and what that looks like at the end. So anticipatory grief can look like, knowing someone is dying, um, or even it doesn't have to be dying. It's just a decline in health, a change.
Well, it's got so much unknown in it, because you never, I've seen people that get sick and within weeks they're gone, and then some that drag, that drag on for like, well, your dad dragged on for what, 17 or 18 years,
Well, but I mean, initially it was dragged on. I mean, he had good
Yeah, that's
quality
not,
of
I shouldn't
life
say, yeah,
for
that's not the
probably
best way to put it.
yeah.
But
But just knowing what could be coming, I remember
yeah,
him even talking about, I'm going to become a vegetable eventually. And this is probably 5 years ago or so. And just him, just imagine what he felt
yeah,
anticipatory wise, and just knowing the effects on his body that this, excuse me, illness was having.
I need to, let's all drink.
We experience grief typically as a typically as a reaction to loss, but it can crop up before a life transition because it can be, in preparation for moving or a job change or
Yeah, that's true.
other a divorce, children leaving home, other changes in our life.
Well, we don't think about grief when it comes to moving or job change. At least it hasn't been. I think more and more we're getting more used to the idea that grief can happen for a lot of different changes in life because it's no matter what, even when somebody's dying, it's the life still changes. Your the the personal lives of the people around this person, but also the person themselves. So yeah, the, that's something I've played with a lot with different clients is, dealing with grief and how well, and then taking the grief and going too much in society, I think, tries to cut that grief short. That says after 2, 3 months you should be good to
Well,
go,
yeah,
kind of
get
thing.
your grieving done and then get
Get it
back to your
done,
life.
get back to life, and that you've changed your life, and that's that's got to be a process too. So,
So, what can we do, Don, to deal with this? Looking at grieving as caregivers and the stress in our feelings and emotions. How can we best take care of ourselves?
well, in Jan's book, there's the I think the whole second half is about using the tapping to slowly work through the issues of grief. So, and like I said, I've worked with patients myself that have dealt with grief, and it's really in that kind of when we're doing that, we're really just letting them express what's going on and letting them get out what needs to come out. It really is not so much on me except to facilitate and let it know that it's okay and
Being
let
an
them,
active listener.
yeah.
So, whether it's having a really good friend you can confide in, having a professional, a therapist, or other counselor, using tools like EFT or other modalities that help you manage your own stress, trying to find a way to get a little exercise in. Listen to Rita Gardner's self care tips for, whether you just spend 15 minutes marching in place, listening to some music or watching something on TV, just pump up your energy level. I always used to recommend stepping outside, even if it's for 30 seconds, to just breathe in the air and just notice things outside.
And letting it out too. I think a lot of times just letting whatever feelings are going on. Don't be afraid to let you know, let the nose run, let yourself cry because it's a good relief just by itself.
So yeah, and finding what, where do you feel safe doing that? What, do you want to just be alone in your room and kind of letting your loved ones know, kind of having a, especially if you're dealing with an anticipatory situation and or wherever you're at in the process, but saying, hey, if I say, hey, I need some time, that means just leave me alone, maybe check on me in an hour or, whatever it is that you need. And, so you have to identify what those needs are. And so writing it out can be a great way to kind of process and kind of, you know, just write down your feelings and kind of it helps you to kind of pull it all together and figure out what benefits you the most, how you can support your own self, right? Because we can't do any good caring for others if we are not caring for ourselves. We got to put our own oxygen mask on. And this goes in hand too with dealing with our feelings and caring for someone and dealing with issues with grief. Um, so, we have to allow those feelings, right? We have to allow our feelings that we're experiencing and saying, having an opportunity, whether you take a day off from work and you just say, nobody bother me, whether it's people, you're going on an event and you say, you know what, I'm going to stay home. You guys go, I need alone.
Yeah, yeah.
Finding that, whatever it is, or maybe you really need to be around people, you need to get out, do something totally different. Um,
Well, I talk about, and this has a little bit to do with this, is that I call it the sticky notes scenario. So if you think about when you want to change something in your life, you write a sticky note. Then maybe you put it on the refrigerator or in the bathroom or something. And I think the more you're able to see that, it slowly fades. And I think the same thing with grief, that it not it fades, but that it morphs into a different place. It goes from grief and some pain to it to grief and sadness. And it's after so much time of looking at that sticky note, it fades too. You don't see it as often or pay attention to it. I don't know if that fitted or not, but I just thought about that.
yeah, I mean, there's so many components to this. There's so much that we could talk about and discuss. We're looking to set up some interviews with people to kind of delve into different aspects of this. But looking at our feelings is not something we always do very well. Like for me, writing about it has really helped. And when I started that blog, it felt good to hit publish and just know someone else might read it. Even if one person reads it and goes, wow, that helps me feel supported. That was kind of all that I needed. And just me being able to state my voice out loud helped me quite a bit because that was something I struggled with most of my life is being able to speak up and speak my feelings. I was always the polite, quiet one who did what I was told, followed the rules, didn't cause a fuss in a situation. But because of that, I often felt invisible and ignored. And so for me, getting those feelings out and expressing them, whether sometimes it's scribbling in my notebook. If I'm angry, I've done this angry at you, Don, and it just write it all down and get it all on paper. It is really a release to do that. I know I've talked in my own support group with the other women I'm involved with, writing a letter to someone, even if they're passed or you're not going to send it, but just the act of writing it out can be releasing. You can write something out and then burn it, do that in a safe manner. You have a charcoal grill outside or a pit or somewhere you can do that safely to release it, or however it would serve you. So we'll be delving more into these topics of facing feelings and how it affects different people and caring for people. You have any other thoughts to share,
No,
Don, today?
no, not today. I think
So thank you for joining us in this episode of our podcast with Focused Healthy Family. We hope today's conversation was helpful and gave you something to think about and reflect on. We'd love to hear from you. Please take a moment to leave us a comment, like, subscribe, share your thoughts, and share this podcast with someone who you feel it might be helpful. If you're finding it difficult to stay calm during your day, or if panic and overwhelm are becoming more frequent for you, we invite you to explore Don's EFT Discovery Series. EFT is described as weird. After a few sessions, people's reactions shift from wait, tapping is what to wow, look what EFT and tapping has done for me. And check out his information on EFT and tapping and how that could support you. And if you're navigating the challenges of caring for an aging loved one, be sure to visit our senior care page on our website for support, resources, and guidance. And obviously, check out prior podcasts. We've done quite a range of podcasts in the couple of years. We've done this from different aspects of caring for children to caring for aging loved ones and supporting our own self care. You can find wellness tips, caregiver insights, and more helpful tools at focusedhealthyfamily.com. You can connect with us on social media, Facebook, Focused Healthy Family, on Instagram, Focused Healthy Family 1, and YouTube at Focused Healthy Family. So you can watch these podcasts as well as listen to them anywhere you listen to podcasts. Join us every Thursday for a new episode of the Focused Healthy Family podcast at focusedhealthyfamilypodcast.com, or listen on your favorite platform again or on YouTube. And remember, how you speak to your children and your loved ones today shapes their future and yours.